within the soul, there are many different manifestations that are recorded, right, in the mind of the soul. So within the soul, there are many different parts that are recorded. And we will just take a few examples of those different parts, that how that soul that I am and that you are has variety parts recorded in the form of thoughts, feelings, sanskars, emotions. It's in that form that these parts are recorded within the soul. So let's say, for example, there are certain parts that were played. Each part had its own personality. Each part had its own script. Each part had its own story. Each part had its own different body as well. So let's say, for example, when I, the soul, came and I took the body, and the body was called or named Anna. Or it could have been a body that was named Sally for the next birth. And then the next birth, Tom. And then the next birth, Tina. And maybe the last birth is this one, which is Rini. But each time, the soul remained changeless. The soul did not change. The soul, although took this body, which was named Anna and had a very different personality, had a very different way of thinking, had a different family, had a different background. Everything was very different. But the soul that was wearing this body and playing this part was very different. Similarly, all the way till this last body, let us just say this is the last body that the soul is wearing. And this body also has got its own personality, its own script. This body also comes with its own way of thinking, belief systems, everything. It's like a different script altogether. But the only thing that did not change through all these different parts is this one being of light that I am. So we can see that everything else is a changeful phenomenon, whereas the being that I am is completely changeless, the only one that did not change. And why is it important to know? Because today we live as this illusion. We believe ourselves to be this person and the name of the body. We believe ourselves to be the personality of this body. And what we are seeing is that although the personality changed, the body changed, but the fact that I, the being, am that silent, still being of light never changed. The being that is Sato Pradhan, the being that is like the Father, never changed. So, and we will now take it in one lifetime. So this we saw over many parts, many lifetimes. Now we will see it over one lifetime. Yeah. So for example, I, the being, let us just say I, the being, entered this womb and I was given this gift of the body and this body of the baby. It was a very different experience that I, the soul, had as a baby than when the body was 6-year-old or when the body was 14 years old or when the body was 20 or maybe the body was 40 and then the body was 70. And we can see that body is constantly changing. It's not the same body as it was at the age of 6. And I guess I'm addressing the group of doctors. So they would know that body is not the same every 7 years. It's completely different body altogether. So it's just very different. But not only just the body, even the mindset was very different. The different hairstyle was there, then different character traits was there, then different wantings were there, different feelings were there at this time. So it's just very different mindset at all different ages of the body. So everything is constantly changing, including mind, its feelings, its thoughts, its emotions. And every time when, let's say, for example, when I was experiencing this body and the mindset at this age, I, the soul, felt this experience to be very real. I experienced the contents of the mind at that time to be very real. But then at this age of the body, when my mindset and belief systems changed, I felt that to be very real. So different versions of mind and body, but the one who did not change again and again, we are bringing our attention to the one who is beyond change and who is beyond the story. Story at this time was different than the story at this age of the body. So we see that thoughts are constantly painting an image. At this time, the self-image that there was believed to be was very different than the self-image at this age. So the self-image also kept changing. At one time, I believed myself to be this 6-year-old boy. Then at another time, believed myself to be maybe a 14-year-old boy with a different story, different set of friends, different, everything different. Again, very important, what is not changing? So when we realize that experiences are constantly changing, but the one who's experiencing all these different experiences is never changing. So only through the memory in the subconscious mind that I, the true self, the living being, the storyless, changeless being of light, is connected to this person, and this person. But if I see it from the perspective of the person, let's say I believe myself to be this 20-year-old college-going student, and I see from the perspective of this person, I, the soul, wear the clothing of these thoughts that I am this 20-year-old body with this 20-year-old boy's story, then from this perspective, this is me, and this is also me. So I am seeing that it's only a self-image, which is different here, and different here. Neither is this me, nor is this me, and nor is this me. The me, the real me, is forever this changeless being of light. So when I associate myself with this particular profession at the age of 20, it's very different than the profession at the age of 60. So what do we see? That all these 3 different versions and many other different versions are just made up of what? They are made up of thoughts, feelings, emotions, memories, images that I have believed myself to be. Yeah? And this is a very deep conditioning we, the souls, have, especially with this last part that we are playing. We are so tightly bound by this last part that we believe ourselves to be the gender of the body. We believe ourselves to be the profession of the body. We believe ourselves to be the role of the body. And we believe ourselves to be the belief systems that come with this mind. And this becomes very important for us to really know that actually, if I look at it from the perspective of the soul, this does not exist anymore. This is only in the memory of my mind. This does not exist anymore. This is only in the memory of my mind. And if this is my current experience of the body, even this experience is constantly changing and shifting moment by moment. So then who am I really? Am I this ever-changing experience of body-mind? Or am I the one within which this experience of the changing person is also taking place? This is what I, the being, really need to pause, take a step back and check. Even in your lifetime at this point, even at this moment in time, can I step back and check, who am I really? Am I the one who I'm believing myself to be is the one who's thinking, who's listening, and who's trying to make sense of what is being heard? Who is that one that is really listening and trying to make sense of what is being heard? Is it the bodiless, thoughtless, changeless being of light who is listening? Or is it some particular self-image sitting here that is listening? Self-image that may have some profession attached to it, may have some past way of seeing things. Many myriad of perspectives we have within ourselves. Am I comparing with what I've heard before? Is that what I'm really doing in this moment in time? Who am I that is listening? And who am I that is talking? Is it the first time am I sharing this? Or is it something that I'm sharing from memory? So this is what will determine who am I really that is constantly in action, because the one that I am, for me, I am changeless, and moment by moment, experiences are changing. Images are changing. Feelings may change. Thoughts may change, but I am that silent self. And within me, the silence, there's a constant change that is taking place. Yeah? So that is why it's very useful to see it in 3 different layers. Yeah? This first layer is the eternal self, the eternal living star. This eternal truth never changes. This eternal truth of the soul is absolute, and it is absolutely silent. This is very important to understand, because this is the subtlest aspect of who I am. And this subtlest aspect of who I am has zero time concept, zero thought concept, zero tomorrow, zero past, zero present, and zero future. This real me is the being that is pure awareness. Now, when I know my eternal experience is not ever changing, then what is it? Then why is it that I feel so different? Who is it that one is feeling so different every day? Moods are different. Feelings are different. Not just in one day. In 1 minute, mood can be different. In 1 minute, image can be different. Then what is this noise and this voice that is constantly taking place? And who am I that is identifying with this noise and with this voice? And that is the second realm, which is not as subtle as the self, but a little bit more gross than the self. Although subtle, subtler than the body and the physical world, but it is more gross than the true self that one is. And this is the realm and dimension of thoughts, memories, emotions, moods. So all these different masks are nothing but different thoughts. But why have we put them as masks? Because the moment soul identifies with any particular thought, instills its life in that thought, because thoughts by themselves have no power. Thoughts by themselves have no life. I know we hear this word powerful thought and powerful mind. Actually, it is not the powerful mind or the powerful thought. And I may be kind of bringing something different than what you've heard before, but would request that keep an open mind, open self that can really see this bit more clearly. If thought had power, if the thought had power, then we, let's say 5 of us, create 5 different thoughts, or same thought actually in this case. 5 of us create same 5 thoughts. And yet, each one will feel those thoughts differently. Some may find these thoughts have no power. They may feel, oh, I'm just repeating a like mantra, but it has having no effect on me. I still feel the same. Another one may say that, oh, okay, this thought is helping me for time being, but as soon as I stop thinking that thought, I'm back to the old self. Then the third one may feel, oh, this is really powerful. And the fourth one may feel, I have become that thought. I feel that is who I am. Yeah. So we can have different experiences with the same thought. So this goes to show it's not the thought that has the power. It is the soul, the thoughtless one, the silent one that has the real power. And then when the real living being, understand that it is the thoughtless one that I am, and I, the being, illuminate and animate any thought I want to. True? So for that, I really need to come out of the constant movement of the thoughts, because mind is constantly changing and moving. If today I identify with this constantly changing and moving mind, then what will happen? Because today the mind is the realm for ego also. And if I'm constantly identifying with the constant change and the movement in the mind, then I will believe myself to be this constantly changing and moving personality of the mind. And that is what is really happening to all of us today. That is why our entire practice is about controlling the mind, about stopping the mind, about replacing the thought with a thought. And as a result, it is an endless process. Endless process. But until I really come to know my silent self, which never changes, which is before and beyond this changing mind and the changing concepts in the mind and the changing self-images in the mind, I will not be able to master the mind. So to really know that I am that reality, that pure, living, conscient being. Thoughts are not living, conscient beings. Thoughts are simply just thoughts. They are really lifeless. And body on top, when they attach to the body, then what happens? A person identity is born. It's like body is a 3-dimensional living image. It's like a very sophisticated costume. I like to see it that way. 3-dimensional costume, which has the ability to create sensations based on the thought that the soul gives power to, whether consciously or unconsciously. If the soul is unconsciously giving power to negative thought or positive thought, whatever it may be, then it will be experienced in the body. And then it creates an experience of being that particular thought in that particular moment. Right? So this is why body and mind work together to give an experience to this living being in this physical world. And what we are seeing is that today, the way we are really living this spiritual experience also is as though I'm a person, Rini, and I'm journeying in this world, and I'm trying to become aware of my experience, and I'm trying to learn about my true nature. Actually, we are still putting the cart before the horses. If we really want to know our true experience, then I first need to know I am the silent being, observer of all these changing thoughts, and observer of the changing body. I am already a soul. I don't have to become a soul. Soul cannot become a soul. Soul is already a soul in this moment of here and now. Duality is in the mind. Good and bad is in the mind. Craving and aversion is in the mind. Suffering and rejoicing is in the mind. Time, language, everything is in the mind. Stories and judgments, all in the mind. I am prior and more subtle than the mind. Prior to and subtler than the mind. I'm not the memories. I'm not even the last 2 seconds that elapsed. I am in this moment of presence now. Time reports to me. Thoughts report to me. I am that being. Sanskars report to me. I am that being that is the master of mind, intellect, and sanskars. We hear it, but the person can also say that I am the master of mind, intellect, and sanskars, and really struggling with the mind at the same time. But we are really coming and stepping out into a place of the silence of the soul, which is absolute, and the silence of the mind, which is sometimes there, sometimes not there. Sometimes when the mind is talking less, then the person, which is this particular spiritual identity, can say, oh, I'm feeling silent because the mind is quiet. And actually, it's still not the soul. Soul is still not awake. Soul is still sleeping. And it is just this thought talking to this particular thought. And the being that is really awake can see a very chaotic mind. The being that is really awake can see and be the observer to the silent mind. The being that is really awake can really see a very melodious, peaceful mind also. But the being's truth never changes. The being is silent regardless of whatever the state of mind is. And this is very important to get this clear, because there can be sometimes excruciatingly painful experiences with the mind and the body, or wonderfully blissful experiences. I am neither. I am beyond both. And that is who I am, like my Father, combined with him. Supreme Father is not judging me based on my mental state. Supreme Parent is seeing me beyond my mind. Yeah. So we, the souls, operate at all 3 levels at all times. So we are not like kind of retreating from one to the other. Yeah. And being that silence that I am is that effortless effort. So from here, when I'm stabilized in my silent truth, I'm either detached or I'm totally immersed in my mind and body. When I'm detached, then I can see the disturbances of the mind and the body, and I will not feel disturbed. When I, the being, am detached, I know myself in that position of being that detached observer. I can see the ever-changing nature. I can see the disheartenment. I can see the anxiety, worry, all these different kinds of thoughts, feelings that are reflecting in the body also. I can experience the different sensations which are constantly changing in the body and the mind. And yet I am that bodiless being. I am not changing. That silent being, I am not changing. So really understanding oneself beyond these 2 layers is knowing the absolute silence of the soul. Otherwise, I am a slave to whatever I give my power to. Negative and positive is in the mind. Soul is beyond negative and positive. Soul can see that negative and positive, day and night, is part of the existence. The nature of the existence is such that there is day and night within me, the soul. There is negative and positive constantly in motion within me, the soul. But I am that constant peace. And within me, peacelessness can be there in my mind, but I am not peaceless. And this detachment of the soul from the mind body truly helps the soul experience liberation in life in this moment, here and now, not 5 years later, 5 minutes later, 5 decades later, here and now. So soul is the very silent witness of everything, mind and body. Yeah, and that is what the Supreme, the combined company of the Supreme helps me see that. So the whole practice in Raj Yoga is never to lose touch with this being that I am, prior to the idea of a happy and a sad person, or a sick or a healthy body, or a changing mood of the mind. The entire Raj Yoga is about knowing I, the being, and the one that never changes. So, truly, to sink into this nature, I am immersed and engaged constantly with the Supreme. Yeah. So that I can shed these forms of movements and thoughts that are constantly changing. Yeah. So the I, the being, am aware of negative and positive. I'm not prejudiced. I'm not judging them. I, the being, am constantly non-judgmental being. I am a detached observer. I don't know what judgment means. I don't have any particular desire to hold on to a positive person and let go of the negative person. No, I know that they both exist within me as just simply a sanskar. The person is nothing but a compilation of thoughts and sanskars put together and identified as me. That is what we call a person or a character. So, really understanding this, that is why company of the Supreme is the very key, because he's unlimited, constantly seeing me in my unlimited form, constantly separating the soul from the fictional mind, truly beyond the fiction. So, we are here. The first step, day one lesson in Raj Yoga is accept God's vision of one's absolute state, that you are forever silence. Om Shanti means I am silence. My Swadharm is silence. And it's not the peace of the mind, it is the silence of the soul. Because peace can be varied, but the silence of the soul never changes. So when I combine with God, instead of combining with my mind, I know that I am that pure self, separate from the fictional mind. Yeah, I will give a simple example to put it into practice. And taken the example of the profession of a doctor. And we can see that as a soul that I am playing this particular part, the story attached to this body, the profession attached to this body is all in the mind. Yeah. And let's say as you, the soul, through the day playing a part of a doctor, and the patient comes, and it's like the report that you have to share with the patient is not necessarily the most favorable report. I would not say positive or negative, but most favorable for the patient who's playing the part of a patient. And you, the being, believe yourself to be that doctor in that moment. And you wonder, in your mind is creating many different thoughts. How do I share this report with them? They will be very disappointed. It is not a good sign. I see the report, it doesn't look good. I am really myself first needing help there, because I am in the realm of my mind. I am in the unreality. I'm already in the fictional world. I need help before the patient needs help. So how do I really see, so that I'm a double doctor that the Supreme Teacher sees me as? Yeah. So we will see that. So the patient may be angry at seeing the report, or after knowing the report, the the soul playing the role of a patient may be very sad or crying. And you internally, as a very good doctor person, feeling that, oh, I should empathize with them. They must be sad or they must be crying because of after hearing this kind of report, how would they be feeling? Of course, they will feel sad and they will feel angry and they will feel helpless. And we may think it is all being very empathetic, and we may think that it is all very good. But as a person, the person mind can think that, but actually, what are we doing? We are not helping them, or neither am I helping myself. I am caught up in the story of my mind of being a doctor, and I'm seeing the other as a patient, and I'm seeing them caught up in their story of being a patient. Yeah? So we all must understand that we are endorsing their feelings of being a victim, and we are endorsing our feelings of feeling disempowered, that I can't help them. So subtly adding fuel to the fire. In this case, we both are patients here. Whereas when I'm with the Supreme, and if I'm really remembering that I am this living being of light, and my mind may create certain thoughts of what it believes itself to be empathetic person, or it may create, which is actually really not empathy, but sympathy, or it may create certain thoughts of irritation or seeing the patient not understanding the case or whatever it may be. It can create many, many different ways of thinking patterns in the mind. This is all part of the mind. This face is part of the mind attached to the body. Yeah, the story attached to the body is the mind. But when I, the being, come into clarity out of confusion in less than a second, it's like the soul is completely different from the personality of one's own person first, one's own mind body. First, help yourself always. Yeah. So first, I am completely different from this person mind body. My mind may be creating 1,000 different thoughts also, but I am a silent being, observer of my own mind first. And that's the beauty of the power of this word man mana bhava, which means sacrifice your mind to me. That's what God says. So when I sacrifice my mind means whatever is going on in my mind out of the conditioned patterns, I surrender it to Baba in that moment, to the Supreme. And I know that I am that silent soul observing this scene in which this mind-body combination may have its own thinking patterns, right? But first understand, I, the being, am not the voice in my own mind, body. I, the being, am not the voice in this particular person identity. Who am I? I belong to the Supreme, and even this soul playing the role of a patient also is in this moment, whilst you're in the scene, in this moment, is also sitting with the Supreme, in front of the Supreme. And very important, very, very important, that the true feeling of the Supreme is also my feeling. So instead of the scene being like this, now the scene will look like this, where this will become your primary experience and the mind will become your secondary experience. Here, the mind was your primary experience and the self was a secondary experience. And here, the self is the primary experience and the mind is the secondary experience. So now I will see as God sees. I will feel what God feels. So as we said, first I will check my own inner drama. What is happening? Is my mind feeling, not am I, but is my mind feeling sorry for that soul's part? Because whatever their disease in the body may be very incurable disease? Or am I the being shining light on my truth which is beyond the body and mind, beyond any disease, beyond any sickness, but immortal, imperishable being. And I'm also shining light on the abundance and the fortune of that being who's also immortal, who's also imperishable, whose true qualities doesn't matter. They may be displaying sadness or worry or anxiety in this moment in the scene down in the mind, but I, the being, am not seeing them as their expressions. I, the being, am not seeing them as their part, the way it is expressing itself, but I'm really seeing them as a being of light that is completely, completely beyond any illness, beyond any disease, in their seed form, in their Satopradhan form. And myself in my Satopradhan stage, beyond their fears, beyond their anxieties, but seeing them in the original eternal state. Then I'm truly functioning from my silent space where I did not succumb to the noise of my mind, the changing thoughts of my mind. I did not succumb to the changing mind of the other soul's part. I stayed in my silence. And from there, I truly am unpolluted, uncorrupted self that I am, perfect self that I am. Then what are my feelings from that space? My feelings are like God's feelings. Is Supreme Baba feeling sorry for the part? Or is he still blissful? Is he still joyful? Because he knows nothing is happening to the soul. Whatever is happening in the mind is just the part playing out. Another soul's mind is expressing, because soul is caught up in its mind, it's expressing that part as the mind. And I, the soul, although my mind and body is still there, but I am coming from the place of my perfection and seeing their perfection, after making sure I'm not deceived by the commentary in my own mind. Yeah. So really, we are seeing how worthy each and every soul is of God's love, regardless of how their part plays out. Yeah. They are not the victim that they are portraying and expressing themselves to be. They are the masters of God's heart. They are the masters of universe, just like you are. All souls are masters of all universes, like we are. So we are focused more on that truth rather than what we are seeing happening in the scene. Yeah. And this is the beauty of really understanding the 84 parts in the immortal seed that are recorded are all temporary, are all completely scripted, just playing out. There is no reality in what you see and what you hear and what your mind thinks. Reality is beyond it all, and that is in the silence of the soul. So we see that the company of the Father really helps us come out of this conditioned mind and body experience, because we are remembering God. It doesn't mean that, okay, this will be just a blissful experience. It is a blissful experience, but we need to understand what bliss really means. Bliss does not mean only positive, no negative. No. This positive, negative is also the language of the mind. Soul is beyond that language. Bliss means undisturbed, undisturbable, unpolluted by any ups and downs and fluctuations of the ego mind. But truly, the soul that is seeing combined with Baba will see even more, even more of those fluctuations and the old nature and the old way of thinking coming to the conscious level. Even more so. And that is what the cleansing is. When I don't intervene, when I don't entangle with these things that are coming up, as you all, playing the part of the doctors, we know that when the medicine is given, the disease will first come out, especially in homeopathy medication, disease will first come out. Something very similar when I'm with the supreme surgeon, I, the soul, the master surgeon, I'm seeing my mind bringing all the old nature, old way of thinking, old habit patterns coming to the surface. Everything will come up. And when I'm seeing it from the place of being undisturbed, anchored in my eternal positioning of being undisturbed and unperturbed, then what happens is that I, the being, is completely like the Father, just like my Baba. And mind can do what it wants to do, but I don't get disturbed. Then mind calms down. And then what comes out is mind settles down because nobody is stirring up that lake, that water in the lake. So then those ripples calm down, and I, the being, come into action from the place of complete silence. I remain still and silent जब मन बहुत फ्लक्चुएशन में आता है, मैं एकदम साइलेंट और स्टिल रहती हूँ. This is our entire practice कि हम बार बार अपने eternal silent truth में अपने आप को बार बार संकल्पों से परे की स्थिति में देखें. अगर किसी को इस पॉइंट पे क्वेश्चन पूछना है तो पूछ सकते हैं.
It was really amazing and really blissful and blissful. Very nice. Anybody would like to ask any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Please.
Just wanted to ask sister कि soul will just be silenced, but when a patient is there, we have to analyze the problem, which would be done by the mind. So that source is also silent, we are also silent. But then answer has to come and the treatment has to be given.
Yes. So the question is?
She has come with a problem physically.
Yeah.
And suppose we are gynecologist, majority of us. So the treatment has to be given. So
Everything
the
will
thought
be.
is clear.
Yeah,
So
very good. I
when we
understood.
give with pure heart, I mean to say, the scientific knowledge what the brain has gained in this time, in this body, has to be given back. So I think that point I could not understand.
Yeah. So silence does not mean that I don't come into words and action. In fact, when I come into words and action from the place of silence, it will be exactly what the other patient needs. You probably, with your own capacity to think, with all the knowledge you have about the scientific, all the study that you may have attained, you may come up with the idea and with the particular treatment which you otherwise would not have been able to think if you're coming from that place of silence, which is coming from that pure place, not defining that soul as their disease, right? Usually what happens is we can define the soul as their disease. Like, for example, let's say somebody has come with some infection, if it's mostly gynecologists. So if there's some particular infection that the body's going through, and I'm not seeing that soul as the disease, but I'm seeing disease separate from the soul. I'm seeing that the soul is absolutely healthy. I, the being, am also absolutely forever beyond disease. We both are beyond disease. And now, once I have this very clear awareness of who we truly are, now when you will give the treatment, you are using the mind, now using the practical mind. Yeah, but you're using, who's using the practical mind? The soul, that is the silent being, not Rini, the doctor, looking after the patient. but the soul with the supreme surgeon, who is the supreme doctor. So you're a double doctor now. You're not one doctor. You're also healing the spirit, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So first, you yourself will have to be in this awareness that I'm simply an instrument of the supreme surgeon to see whatever medication needs to be given is being given according to the knowledge that you have in your practical mind. But your awareness is I am an instrument of God. I
Yes.
am, the supreme surgeon is the supreme doctor, is the supreme being. And that soul is not its disease, it's not its infection. I, the being, am first checking, is there any kind of feeling of worry, anxiety as a doctor in my mind?
Hmm.
Yeah. If it is there, first surrender it to the supreme being. Because if you give solution through that lens, it won't be with the highest energy. The action is not of the highest quality. Does that make sense?
Yes, I understood very well. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So action is coming. Even inaction is an action. So action is coming from that purest place of knowing who I am, simply an instrument, serving the soul first, and then giving what needs to be given for the body. Yeah.
So yeah, so being in silence, we are adding more energy to our action, and the action is of more and highest quality because we are adding more energy to that action. So is it what
Exactly.
I'm getting from?
Exactly. You're actually adding the highest quality vibration. So you're not only giving that soul some namesake medicine, but you're also giving that soul the power to see itself beyond that disease. That is actually going to be more healing than just that pill that is given. Pill is literally for namesake, which we are giving. But as we now know, most diseases are psychosomatic. And we really see that when we are really giving, it really feels like I'm playing a part for namesake of a doctor patient part in a game. In a game, I'm playing a part, doctor patient. But truly, the effort is how do I, the being, stay in my silence? And from that silence, I come into action, and the best remedies will be given of the highest quality. Treatment will be given. Because first, half the disease gets cured just by looking at the doctor. Yeah. Yeah.
The counseling
That's
also.
yeah.
Yeah, it is true. Many times they say that even just with the affectionate words also they feel very nice and the
Yeah.
part of the disease is covered.
Yeah. So imagine if your vibrations are also that powerful. Your vibrations are of that you're already healed. We are beyond disease. Immortal, I am immortal. Your true self, your truth is imperishable. My truth is imperishable. You're already healed. And then you're just giving medicine for namesake, whatever needs to be given according to the knowledge you have in the practical mind. You're giving it. You're playing your part beautifully. But you're really serving the soul at the level of the seed. You're healing the soul at the level of the seed rather than just the body, which is the treating the leaves and the branches. I'm providing healing at the seed level.
That is true. Half of the disease is cured with only with the words, affectionate
Yeah.
words.
Yeah.
Counseling.
That's the healing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Healing is different thing, and definitely curing is a different thing. So we are supposed to heal the patient rather than just cure.
Yeah. Medicine can cure the body, but real healing is happening at the level of the soul.
So exactly.
And you will see that through the day, you have seen 20 patients and you're still feeling rejuvenated. You have not taken on the baggage of everybody's emotions within yourselves, So today your profession is getting more and busier and busier. So you need to really be kind of upping the ante of your game and really be on top of your game.
It was really eye-opener. Very nice.
Yeah, heard
Any,
for the first time such an in-depth science of silence. So thank you so much, Rini,
Yeah,
sister.
welcome.
I'd like
thank you
to,
very much for having us, Baba and I, and everyone together here. Thank you
Thank you
very,
from all of you, all of us.
really appreciate it.
we'd like to hear from you next time.
Again and again.
Uh,
Definitely,
We'll invite you again and again
as Baba and Ram.
because everybody liked this series and all are joining enthusiastically, and they're asking me about the link even though I'm late. So that's it. Day by day, it is becoming very interesting.
Wonderful, very good. And it's really good to see that double doctors are very much in full swing with Baba. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you
Thank you so
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.